Hi, this is Charlotte with Granny Charlotte's Adventure Stories, and today we're reading chapter 13 of Little Pilgrim's Progress. But we have a couple of vocabulary words. Our first word is jury. A jury is a group of people who decide if someone is telling the truth or if they are lying. Jury. And our other word today is envy. When a person is not happy because they think that what their neighbor or someone else has is better and that they would be happier if they had what that other person had, that's envy. All right, let's get to reading. Before we start reading today, remember from our past reading that Christian and Faithful were imprisoned overnight. I just wanted to show you this picture to kind of give you an idea in your mind before all these trials and bad things were happening to the pilgrims. Here they are on a good day. Here's Pilgrim, little Christian in his armor, and here's Faithful, his dear friend. Just wanted to bring that little picture to your mind. And now let's get reading. When the morning came, Christian and Faithful were taken to the governor's court, where the judge sat every day to try any prisoners who might be brought to him. He was an old man with a hard and cruel face, and like the governor, he hated the king and all his pilgrims. Christian and Faithful were brought before him with their hands chained, and he asked where they had come from and what they had been doing. Then a boy named Envy, who had been one of the first to run after the little pilgrims and tease them, rose up and began to answer the judge's questions. He said he had known Christian and Faithful when they were living at home, and that they were disobedient and quarrelsome and did not honor the wicked prince who was the ruler of their country. Two other boys followed Envy, and they agreed that what he said was quite true. They also told the judge that they were afraid the pilgrims would do great harm to the children of Vanity Fair if they were allowed to be free, because they laughed at the treasures with which the wicked prince had filled the city, saying they were not worth having. And they pretended that they knew of a finer city and another's king whose laws were better than those of the wicked prince. There were 12 men sitting in the court whose duty it was to listen to everything that was said about the prisoners and then help the judge to decide whether they deserved punishment or not. These 12 men were called the jury. Of course, they were chosen from among the chief servants of the wicked prince and were not likely to be kind or just to any of the king's pilgrims. And here's a pic of an old-time jury. The judge is there, the fellow is trying to explain what happened, and these people are going to decide whether he's telling the truth or not. However, they always pretended to treat their prisoners fairly, so when Faithful asked if he might speak to them, the judge answered, "You ought to be put to death at once for all that you have done, but we will first hear what you have to say." Christian wondered how it was that Faithful had become so brave. His face was pale and white, but he did not seem to be frightened, although the judge and the people in the court looked wicked and cruel. Christian afterward knew that the king had helped his little pilgrim and had made the timid boy brave and strong, so that he was not afraid to speak out and say that he loved his king dearly and would obey no one else. When Faithful had spoken, the judge turned to the jury and said, "You have heard what Envy and his companions have told us about these boys, and Faithful does not deny it. He will not serve our prince, and by the laws of our city, he ought to be put to death." Then the 12 answered, "We can see that both these pilgrims are wicked boys, but Faithful is the worst, because he is not ashamed to speak out against our prince. We think that he must be killed. But Christian can be taken back to prison. Poor little Christian's mind had been so troubled by all that happened that he scarcely understood what the jury was saying. And when the soldiers of the wicked prince came in and led Faithful out of the court, he wondered where they were going. In a few minutes, he too was taken into the marketplace, and there he saw his companion in the midst of those cruel men who were beating him and and wounding him with their sharp weapons. "Oh, Faithful! Faithful!" he cried out, but Faithful did not answer. He was looking up into the sky, and his face was shining with a beautiful light, like the face of Christian's mother had shone when he saw her in his dream. Then Christian looked up also, and in the air, just above the place where Faithful was standing, he could see a band of angels with their wings outspread, and he knew that they were waiting to carry the soul of the little pilgrim, Faithful, to his home in the celestial city. And here we have an artist's drawing of a band of angels coming to take someone with them to the celestial city. We don't know exactly what that looks like, but use your imagination. What do you think that band of angels would look like? Little Christian knew that the angels would carry Faithful safely into the presence of the king, and as he thought of this, he forgot for a moment that he was in the midst of Vanity Fair, surrounded by the servants of the wicked prince. Suddenly, the boys of the city gave a great shout of pleasure, because they loved to see a little pilgrim punished, and their cry startled Christian, so that he turned once more to look at his hurting friend. But the king is very merciful, and he did not wish Christian to know how much poor Faithful was suffering. A mist seemed to pass before his eyes, and he cried out again, "Oh, Faithful! Faithful!" Then a strange feeling came over him, and he imagined that his mother had pushed her way through the crowd and had lifted him in her arms and carried him away into an open space where there were no soldiers and no noisy, mocking children. There he lay for some time, feeling too weak to move or speak. But presently he opened his eyes and found that he was in the prison upon a little bed, and that a woman was bending over him. She was gaily dressed like all women in Vanity Fair, and although she did not look unkind, her face was very different from that of Christian's mother. She was the wife of the man who kept the prison, and when the little fainting boy had been carried from the marketplace by the soldier who had taken charge of him, she had been very sorry to see him. So she brought him some water and bathed his hands and face gently and stayed by him until he revived. "You poor little child," she said presently. "You are too young to be a pilgrim. I should like to keep you here and take care of you." "You are very kind to me," he said, "but I could not stay. I'm going to the king." "Ah," replied the woman, "I was going to the king once, but the way was hard, and I have been very happy here in this city." "You would be happier with the king," said Christian. "Faithful is gone. I saw the angels waiting for him, and if they ever let me out of prison, I shall travel as fast as I can to the end of my journey." The woman stroked the boy's hair softly. "Faithful is dead," she whispered. "I was sorry when they told me, but they are not going to kill you." "I don't think I would have minded," said Christian, "for then I should have gone straight to the celestial city. Now perhaps I shall be kept here always." or if not, I shall have to go the rest of the way alone." "They will only keep you in prison for a few days," answered the woman. "Stay with me. I will be very kind to you." But Christian shook his head. "I couldn't stay. I love the king, and I must go to him." After a few days, the keeper of the prison came to him and told him that the governor of the city had given an order for him to be set free, so Christian started once more on his journey. The kind woman was sorry to see him go, and she kissed him and bade him to think of her sometimes. "I will tell the king how good you have been to me," said Christian, "and perhaps someday you will be a pilgrim again. If I see you coming into the celestial city, I shall know you and be so very happy." He went quietly down the street, not feeling strong enough yet to walk quickly, and fearing very much lest those boys should follow him again, as they had done before. But because Faithful had been put to death, they were satisfied, and although they laughed together when the little pale-faced pilgrim passed, they did not touch or interfere with him in any way. He was just going through the great archway of the city gate when he heard someone running behind him, and then he felt a hand upon his shoulder. For a minute he was frightened, thinking that his troubles were beginning again. But the boy who had stopped him looked frightened too, and said in a half whisper, "Let me come with you. I don't want to stay here any longer." "Do you mean that you will be a pilgrim?" said Christian. "Yes, I am called Hopeful, and I want to go with you. But wait until we are safely on the road, and then I will tell you all about it." And that concludes our reading for today. That was rather serious, but Faithful is now in the celestial city. Thank you. Now, children, don't forget, always brush your teeth, wash your hands, and protect your teeth even more by eating an ice chip. Today, I'm going to eat a chocolate brownie.